Hey, so we're gonna do a sound check real quick. Let us know how we sound, and as far as levels, and then we will get started. After that, Cypher, it was me that said hey, but I'm sure Pi is somewhere around. You only hear audio out of one side again. Let me check that out. How did that? Okay, there we go. Okay, that should have fixed it. There we go. How does that sound, Pi?
Are we good?
Are we good to
It's
go?
coming out both of my ears on the channel, not just in the Zoom chat. Obviously, we're in the Zoom chat.
All right, get some sounds. Great, awesome.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me? Am I good? Am I too loud? Do I need to turn my own stuff down? Because I will.
I'm telling you. The web captioner trying to tell me I was being too quiet. I said, "Don't tell me I'm too quiet. You'll regret it real fast."
What is happening?
It's a mess, and I love it. Oh, I'm so happy to be here, y'all.
We love it when sound check is a mess. It usually is for for most of our shows. So
yes,
it's hilarious. Alrighty, so since we are sounding good, let's go ahead and get started. So hello there, coworkers, and welcome to Back to the Motherlands, presented by Dicey Amazons and Critical Bard, an after show discussing the development and events of Into the Motherlands campaign, featuring Tanya DePass, Christina Ariel, Michael Sinclair II, DJ Knight, and storyteller Eugenio Vargas. You can find all of their socials in chat using the command MLCast, and I am your host, Candy. And we also have, for the first time here today, the Critical Bard.
It's me.
Yes.
What's up? My name has been up there and I have not been there, but you know what? I'm here now. That's what matters.
And we are super duper excited to have you here. So, if you would like to support our channel, we are sponsored by both Dice Envy and Grinding Coffee Co. Links are also in the chat. And if you use code Dicey Amazons, you can save 10% or more on your order. What happened, Pi? What happened to my links, yo?
Right, I'm like, what just happened?
What happened, Pi? Thank you, CV, for putting those in chat. Pi is slacking.
I did it, and I was like, wait, can I do it? I might not, because some people have like mod only or VIP up. And I was like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to do anything. I lied. It did pop up though.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I look away for 1 second.
Right? But today we do have a very special guest. You know him as the storyteller for Into the Motherlands. He is the DM of the D&D Last Refuge, which is a D&D 5e actual play podcast. He is an actor. He is a music director, which I love personally. He is a queer, Black, Latinx person in this community, just doing the thing as best as possible. This is Eugenio Vargas.
Hey everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
How are you?
Hanging in like the rest of us. Today was the first day in 14 days that I was allowed to leave the house. I traveled to a state with high transmission rate and then back to New York City. And if you come into the city from one of those states, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I am free as of today.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
Free as a bird.
Yeah, it was weird. I obviously I don't leave the house all that much. I don't know that any of us do unless we have to. But being told that I can't for 2 weeks, I've never wanted to go to the park so bad.
Oh yeah, it's not even a big deal until you're told specifically that no. And it's like now I'm going to unprincipled.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
All right.
No, all right. Oh goodness.
Alrighty, so from here, let's do a quick recap of the latest episode. So I'll do that real quick. And for the last episode from Sunday, we started off with basically our little cliffhanger from the previous episode, in which an alarm was going off in the ship after the incident with the solar flares. And so, as the crew kind of figured out who would handle what, they sought some assistance from Silent 919, who was currently unavailable to them. And so they decided that Ikimba and Evicta would go and check out the water tanks where the alarm was going off. And Ili would kind of stay up front and would continue to sort of pilot the ship and make sure everything was good on the bridge. So, when this happens, we get a look into Sila 919 in what I like to what I like to call the flashback episode.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what I called it too.
Okay. Awesome. I am not
Essentially what
alone.
happened.
Not alone. So we get to learn quite a bit about Silent 919 and the day that she found out about the mission that they are on right now. And so during that day, Silent 919 was getting some upgrades. And they were emotional upgrades, which is very interesting. I was very excited to see how this would play out for Amansagene.
Oh, it did not. It did exactly what we thought.
Exactly. And, like, it was even more than what I thought. Like,
Gosh,
there was so much happening there. You've got Silent 919 basically crying
oil.
like oil.
Why is all the oil leaking? It's like that wording is just inhuman.
Right?
Oh.
But it's funny because that brought some, like, for me, I pictured her like getting her oil refilled because she's started to leak oil now, so now she'll need regular fill-ups of oil because of this.
Just gonna make a note about that. You keep going.
Okay.
Silent must refill.
Awesome. And so she starts to feel like this empathy and this compassion, and she is freaked out. Just completely freaked out. And and starts to be able to see the beauty that is around her. And so being able to see that happen with someone who has not had those feelings before was pretty cool. And I love how that scene just completely played out for her as she went into basically an emotion overload, and just really was not happy with this whole upgrade. We get to meet her mentor, and the mentor is, I love the dichotomy between both of them, because the mentor has been around and has had these upgrades. You can tell by Eugenio's storytelling that that Mabel has had these upgrades by how she is reacting and talking to Silent 919. And so with that, as Mabel is sort of calming down Silent 919 and trying to get her to process these new feelings that she's having, she is approached by a stranger, and basically goes into a job interview. That was.
What does she say? I find you attractive. You may continue. What did she say?
Um,
That wording was just like, yes.
Something about you are attractive to me. Please
Yeah.
carry on, or something
Yes,
like
yes,
that.
yes.
Like, I register you as attractive. Please
Something like
continue.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, pick up line. It's done.
You're right.
right.
Yeah, I was cracking up at that line.
Yes, your beauty is pleasing. Speak.
Your beauty. There we go.
Yes,
Yes. Thank you. And so with that, we get this job interview that is mostly one-sided. Silent 919 really is not really answering the questions, but somehow, gets the job anyway. um, and then after that, excuse me. After that, we get back to the ship, and Evicta and Kimba are checking out the water tanks at this time, and they end up deciding that they need to wake up Silent 919. And at that point, there was a a very interesting conversation with Invicta and Silent 919, in which Invicta left feeling very disrespected um, during that interchange, that interaction, and um, it actually ended up leading into some flashbacks for Invicta and how this was something that she's been through before, and specifically on the day that she was also interviewed to be on this crew as well. And so we get into a little bit about how Invicta was fighting to basically prove herself and her worth. She also ends up with the job interview on the same day. This job interview is completely other side of the coin. It's a lot more open, and you get to kind of find out a bit more about Invicta during this job interview. And then after that, we do go back to the present time, in which the tanks are being fixed by everyone. The roles were a lot better. Then
Low bar, but sure.
Well, yeah. Than previous episodes, but we were able to see a bit more of the rolling and these dice pools, and how those work for this type of situation, which is pretty cool. And so that's pretty much our recap for this episode, and so we are going to talk to Eugenio, and we're gonna pick your brain on a few things.
Please do.
All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, like especially just because not only you've done multiple systems, because the world isn't just D&D first and foremost.
Yep.
You've done different systems, but this is a unique experience because it's a new system. And not only is it a new system, it's a new system that you're helping build. You're helping create the blueprint and the foundation of what will be done in the future. So it's like, it's a cool experience. So, I mean, the first question is like, how long have you been a game master? How did you start? Like, what was your interest in being on the production side, on the leading side of the game versus just playing it?
Yeah, I really only started playing tabletop role-playing games like 6.5, 7 years ago, right before 5th edition D&D came out. I started playing as a player. When 5e came out, I got a group together and began DMing them, and really quickly realized that I really enjoy playing, but DMing is my bag. For lots of reasons that we can certainly talk about, but to sort of go through the little history. So I started doing that and started playing with them, finding out more about the community and the industry, discovered a couple of actual play podcasts that people recommended to me, whatever. And I'm not going to say which ones they were because absolutely no disrespect to either of them. Are both great podcasts, but in both cases, as happens with a lot of us creatives, a lot of times, I thought, this is so great. I feel like I could do this. I feel like this is a thing, and I would love to do this thing differently, right? Hearing them be so good at what they did allowed me to figure out like how I would like to put my spin on it. So that got me to start the podcast, Last Refuge, and we're now like 3 years and 3 months into doing that show. Awesome. And that is really what sort of exploded me into production and game design and writing and playing role-playing games for an audience. Sort of all of that was wrapped up into me starting the podcast. So, the podcast is all homebrew material in terms of the narrative and the story.
Mhm.
So that started me off writing. I then ended up, publishing a couple of things to the DMs Guild for D&D. And then maybe a little over a year ago, I started really seriously sort of getting invited to play in other systems and explore other systems. Renegade Games was really great to me at Gen Con last year, and provided me with a whole ton of like review material for me to go over of a bunch of different systems. And I really started to sort of discover, I'll always love D&D as my intro to the hobby. But there are I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone who's here today, right? There are pros and cons to D&D, and aside, all judgment aside, not every game does everything well,
Mhm.
and
Agreed.
nor should it
Yeah.
have to, right?
Yep.
So, discovering these other systems in the last year or so has not only shown me other systems, but also really opened my eyes to the different types of stories, the different types of storytelling, the different sort of things you can accomplish with different systems. So in the before times, I'm chugging along with all of my D&D stuff, and I get invited to apply for and get a position writing for the fifth season role-playing game for Nora Jemison's amazing series. So that has been for our timing was not great when we got down to work on that in earnest. So that's been sort of a longer process than any of us anticipated. But it was really my first time getting to work on and write for and design for a non-D&D system, which again, super eye-opening. And then when Tanya asked me to be a part of Motherlands as the storyteller primarily, but I knew right from the beginning I wanted to be in those designer meetings. I wanted to be in the writers' rooms. I wanted to talk to B Dave about stuff. I wanted to talk to Gabe and Shrang and everybody about how the mechanics were going to be used. Because like you said, CB, it's a new system in that it has only just been made publicly available. It's only just been published and available for purchase. But also the core sort of idea behind the system is that it's infinitely customizable, right?
Mhm.
So even if it had been out for years and years and years, our version of it for Motherlands would be unique.
Exactly.
And I am someone who picks up mechanics pretty well, memorizes them pretty well, gets comfortable with them well, but it does take repetition for me. So I knew that I wanted to be in those design meetings, in those conversations, not only to toss my 2 cents in, since I would be the one running the mechanics once we started streaming, but also just because the more I could be sort of inundated with all of that information, the better a handle I would feel like I had on it from the go.
Sorry, I
Awesome.
was looking at the thing real quick.
You good?
A really quick side question in that
Yeah.
question. How
Yeah,
have
I
you
went on for a while,
felt-
sorry.
No, you're good.
No, yeah.
How have you felt this? And there's another question that kind of will go into detail on this, but how have you felt this specific system has deferred, perhaps for the better? But how have you felt this deferred from other systems? Like, how has it been more cohesive? Has it been easier to figure out for you? Especially because again, you're the one leading this game. How has it been just navigating this?
It's on the whole, it's been really great. I will say we are obviously spoiled because we have an open line to the lead designer of the Cortex system. Cam Banks is an amazingly supportive and wonderful human who's always available when I have questions or when Tanya and B Dave and Gate, anyone. He's been so great. And he's 1,000 time zones away, but he's been so great about helping us and answering questions and letting us do our thing with it, but also guiding us and sort of helping us understand the intent behind the system. So I will say that my answer is heavily colored by the fact that we have that amazing assistance in our back pocket. That said, it's been great. I have found that a lot of systems that are popular right now, and Cortex is no exception. The thing for me that has been most interesting is learning how to deal with a system that just sort of mechanically on the baseline rolls dice less often than D&D, which is really obviously where I have the most experience. You know, in D&D, you sort of end up rolling for everything, right? Make a perception check, make an insight check, make an investigation check, whatever. And that's really not the case in Cortex. You really, because tests have the potential, as we've seen, for hitches and botches, where really bad stuff can happen to the characters, rolls have to be really significant. And if a player wants to make a roll, they have to make that sort of calculus in their mind of, is it worth risking a hitch or a botch or multiple hitches or whatever, which, you know, are going to lead to either a really bad situation narratively and or stress on my character sheet, which is essentially like damage, right? We think of stress like damage in Cortex. So finding that balance of how often do we make rolls? What is important enough? Like, what is the threshold of narrative importance to make it worth doing a roll for? That's definitely been a thing for me to find. And has been really interesting. I think, you know, as we are designing the system as we go, you know, most of the mechanics that we have picked out from Otherlands right now are the sort of base rules in Cortex. We don't have a ton of their what they call mods added on yet. There's every chance that we will eventually, once we sort of get to that phase in development. But right now, it's pretty much the base stuff. So it's been good to explain to the players and explain to the audience, and I feel like people are getting a pretty good handle on how to at least be on the player side, you know, how to put together a dice pool, how to roll the dice, and what the results kind of mean. The other thing that's really interesting about some of the things that we've chosen for Cortex, so one of the things that you do when you're setting up your Cortex system is that you choose what those categories of dice are. So I talked a little bit about this in this past Sunday's episode, because I think it was Tanya actually was trying to pull a die that our digital character files wouldn't let her pull for a dice pool. And I said, oh, well, you know, what I realized was I've been doing this wrong. You can only pull one die from each sort of section of your character sheet, but those sections totally decided upon by me and Tanya and B-Dave and Gabe and the core design folks. And in choosing those sections, we learned a lot about the world. So we decided that instead of, you know, an ability score type thing where we're literally assigning numeric values, or I guess die values, to physical and mental attributes, we went with the value system, which clarified a ton just by choosing that one mechanic and picking out those 6 values that they have, which are, I'm going to get this wrong, knowledge, power, duty, glory, crud. What are the other 2?
Right, knowledge, power, duty, glory. See, I'm struggling too. How dare you?
Yeah, but I run the game. Knowledge, power, somebody's going to remember. I can look up the thing. But anyway, we chose those. I'll remember in a minute and I'll get back to it. But we chose those because we felt like those were the 6 things that spoke the most to the setting that we were creating, right? And they were sort of a good spread of what we thought people would be concerned with in the Motherlands, or in that, you know, in the galaxy there. So that, you know, doing things like that with the Cortex system has been amazing for us as developers to create mechanics that specifically speak to the world that we're making, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And because I've been looking at the website, like the Cortex website, and kind of seeing some of the things on there, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And just found out about an hour before showtime that my book is in at the store. So I need to go pick it up tomorrow.
Get it.
I'm excited.
And you'll see there's so much more in there. And there are so many great guides for, like, you know, if you're trying to go for this tone, this style, this theme, you know, grab these mods and do it's really a clever system. I mean, it's obviously, you know, it's a lot of fun and it's great, it's all the things, but I say clever because it's very sort of smart, the way that they have put together the options for you. Be interested to see what you think about it when you actually see it, but yeah, it's been good. Wait,
Awesome,
I'm looking up those dang values. Hold on one second.
Right, I'm like, no, I'm like, I will find
balance
this.
and exploration. Those
Exploration. I was like, I know it's an E word, but it's not experience.
That's terrible that I didn't remember exploration, because exploration is probably the central, like, thing that we have talked about on the development side about the Motherlands.
Yeah.
You know, I asked
Just get
Tanya
silently
and
judged.
Yeah, right. Judge me. Look, I'm judging myself. I asked Tanya and B Dave both, what is the main conflict of the Motherland? What is the type of conflict that the Motherlands is going to be really good at telling, right? Forgotten Realms is like epic magic fantasy, right? Call of Cthulhu is sort of semi-modern horror, right? Kids on Bikes is fun 80s like kid shenanigans, right? What is our thing? And they both, not in so many words, but they both said, exploration. Exploring the world that they are on, exploring the stars that they have found themselves in, and also exploring, it sounds cheesy, but exploring within themselves. What does it mean to be in this world, to be surrounded by different creatures, and how do we deal with that? What does that mean for us as, well, aliens, as humans, as whatever it is, right? So
it's
yeah.
also that's very important to me as well, because exploring obviously is a vast thing. We just got to this new planet that we're now colonizing, for lack of a better word, because but exploring yourself and what it means to be now a new entity in this space, how that changes you as a person. It's it's a really cool mechanic, for lack of, it's not really a mechanic, but it's a cool idea to make that the focal point.
Yeah, I think so. And I see Cypher yelling, "No colonizing," which is exactly it, right? Like we made a point, and some of this has started to come up in gameplay, but and more will continue to. But when the Musalians arrived, the Hyonals found them and helped them to settle in a place where they would not be displacing anyone. And so that was their sort of introduction to settling in this new world. And I think that had a profound effect on generations of Musalians going forward, that when they came here, they settled, they got to have their space, but it was done in a way that it didn't affect deeply or displace others immediately. And that is sort of a tenet of settlement in the Motherlands for us at this point. And there's all kinds of stuff like that we have run into and that we undoubtedly will run into, which is, us getting a chance as a bunch of Black and POC designers and writers and role players to, sort of put our money where our mouth is in some sense and do all of those things that we have always said we wanted in our games, right? To decentralize conflicts based on racism or whatever it is, queerphobia, ageism, misogyny, whatever it is, right? To start from ground zero and say, we are going to show you all how to do what we've been asking you to do for so long, because it is possible. So we are not going to centralize these things. We are going to have Black human characters that do not have to deal with the baggage of colonization and slavery, right? We are going to create a world where a binary gender system is not the default assumption.
Period.
We're going to create a world where, heteronormative romance and relationships are not even necessarily the default assumption. And I don't know, I think it's gone pretty well so far, right? Like, the story makes sense, the world is cohesive, and there are queer folks. It's amazing.
Like, you didn't think it was possible, and yet it's happening. Those shenanigans. How dare?
And it's even like, and we've done the work. We've worked hard to make it like this, but also, like, I gotta tell you, like, it ain't that hard. Just do it, which I, and I understand. Look, that's a loaded thing to say, and I get that, right? There are established IPs, and that is not an excuse. It just makes it more work, because you have to do the right thing in a way that, like, allows the work and the lore that you've created in the past to still be existing and extant, but to push aside the mistakes from the past, right? We don't have that baggage either with this system, which I will admit, makes things that much easier on us. But that said, like, I don't know, what do they say? Proof is in the pudding, right? Like, come look, we did it. So can you, like, truly.
Awesome. And you pretty much answered that question there. So no, that's good. No, that's perfect. I love it. Y'all, every single one of the guests from Into the Motherlands is just like, been answering all the questions, and we love to see it. So so you did touch on this a little bit as far as like the Cortex system and everything like that. But as far as like the dice pools,
Mhm.
like how like what was your first impression of how they used the dice pools?
Um, I think it's really cool. I like a game that allows you to um, that allows the mechanics to be informed by narrative and role playing.
Mhm.
Um, Another system that does it, I think, really well is the new Roll20 sci-fi system, Burn Bright.
Mhm.
They don't use dice pools, but they also have a set of like 18 skills, and then say in the core rulebook you can use any of them at any time for anything as long as you can justify it narratively and your GM goes with you.
Mhm.
And I think that is a really cool thing about these dice pools. One of the things that I really like about it is that it allows you to always consider your character as sort of a full, well-rounded person in anything and everything they do, right? Because if you're trying to pull in dice, you're not just going to look at your skill list and say, oh, I'm trying to fix a broken water tank. I'm going to use my fix skill. Here's a roll, right? Instead, you get to do things like say, well, I'm going to pull from my Monzagene distinction because being a Monzagene already gives me a little bit of experience with mechanics. And I'm also going to use my duty value because the fact that I am the captain of this ship and have a duty to my, obviously this is not Silent 919's
Yeah.
logic, this is my own, but I'm just pulling stuff, right? But I have a duty to my crew to make sure that the mission is successful, and that is going to inform how well I do at this. So I'll pull a duty in. Sure, I'll toss in the fix skill, right? But already, even with just those three things, very quickly this dice pool has allowed me not only to create a mechanical thing that I can use to achieve a goal, but it's also helped me understand my character and tell the story of my character more,
Mhm.
which I think is really cool. There's a lot of Cortex that
Yeah.
we have planned for Motherlands but have not used yet in a streamed episode. There's a whole other system, a whole other type of dice rolls. We have seen exclusively what are called tests, which are basically done when a player wants to do something and isn't being actively opposed by someone else. The other type of dice roll, though, is a contest, which is when you are being actively opposed by someone. So contests would include combat, if you're actively engaged in combat with someone, but also any sort of social interaction that has high enough stakes to require a dice roll, anything, or even just trying to, get somewhere and someone is opposing you.
Mhm.
And that's a whole other set of mechanics, similar but different, that I'm really curious to see how they work in practice. Because in theory, I understand them perfectly, but
Right.
In theory, we know everything.
right, exactly,
In theory, we
exactly.
know why the apple fell from the tree, but
That's right. That's right.
that's funny. Um, with knowing how like the dice pools go and just how this system is already so unique,
Mhm.
is there a different way you prepare for a session with this game? Um, and also a side question from that.
Uh-huh.
I assume that the development team talks at least every week about what's
Yeah.
happening. How does that get pulled into the session that's happening? Is there anything that's like, we'll table this for now, don't worry about it this session, worry about the next session? Like how is that? What's that process?
Yeah, I mean, so I have an adventure outline from that bronze girl, from Jasmine,
Mm-hmm.
who's one of our writers, and it is a great full adventure outline that takes us to Hathaway to deal with whatever's going on up there with the irrigation system. So in terms of that story, I have that really great guide to prep from. And I'm starting now to get a sense for our pacing and sort of how far we can get in each session. So that's
Mm-hmm.
also super helpful for me. In terms of stuff that I do differently based on Cortex, it is it has so far been a matter of, okay, I think we're going to get this far. These are the things we're going to run into. What are the mechanics that the players are going to have to use to get through that? So when we got into, before we did 2 episodes ago, when we got into the static, when we got into the solar storm, I sort of said, okay, I know this is really the first time that we're going to get a lot of tests. And I need to understand sort of how those work, how the different ship stations contribute to the captain's station. Sort of need to understand all of that. So I find that I spend more time double checking my mechanics prep because everything is always new. Other than that, I don't really know that my prep is so different. I make sure that I know as much of the whole story arc as I can, because that makes it personally easier for me to improv in the moment if I know sort of where things are gonna end up without, if the PCs weren't there, how would the situation end up? How would the major GMCs, which is what we call our NPCs in Cortex, how would the major GMCs react to certain situations? Who are those people? And if I know all of that, then for me personally, that is prep enough. And then I can improv with him there, understanding, oh, well, I happen to know this GMC wants X, Y, and Z. And so the fact that the players are trying to give them Q, here's how they would respond, In terms of the writers, it's been amazing. And yes, we talk all the time in between sessions, but also I am messaging Gabe during sessions. You will, if you go back, you might notice that I very strenuously avoided giving Silent 919's mentor a name for a while during that flashback. And that's because I had messaged Gabe and I was like, I'm terrible at names. Give me a Manzagene name, please. And I was just waiting on him to message me back in Discord, which he did. And then I tossed the name out. So they're incredible. I can call on them at any time for stuff, and they will happily supply it for me. Not just Gabe, but everyone we've got on the team, which is such a cool thing to do.
I'm like, you just said you literally, as a storyteller, game master, however you want to flip that script, you can be in the moment, not know what to do, still be talking, but go to the team directly during the game and say, hey, friend, what do I do here? Click.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep. I do it. That is so cool.
It's so cool. It's so cool. And then in between, in between sessions, it feels like we can have asynchronous, of course, because we're all over the world and we're, whatever, pandemic, whatever. But we can have writers' rooms, right? Like a TV show. And obviously, it's not like a TV show because we're not scripting things. I'm sure we'll talk about this, but way less than I think anyone, myself included, would guess of those 2 flashbacks this week was planned. And I will tell you all about that later. But so, it's not a writer's room like we are writing scripts of every week, but it's a writer's room where I can go in and say, hey, we're going to run into this group of people next week. Would y'all mind tossing together some like a list of cultures that you think this group would be from? Give me a few names for this group and tell me, flesh out this organization a little bit, because we're going to run into it next week. And I want to be sure that I understand it before the players make contact. And I'll get that. And that's incredible. That's so cool. And it might be something that Jasmine had planned on us running into, and it might not. And that's also totally cool, because our writers and developers are ready. They also have the settings sort of, to some extent in their brains, and can say, all right, I understand where things are and I understand what you're asking for. Let me work something in for you. It's amazing. It's really, I'm so spoiled, I have to tell you.
That's awesome. So right now we've been through a few episodes with the characters and we're getting to learn more about them. What character do you relate to the most right now?
Oh. Do you know, I promise I'm not just being like, oh, I can pick a favorite, because that's not the question. It's not about my favorite.
Yeah,
but all of them in some way, right? And I'll tell you why. So Eli, I'm gonna start with Eli. Bless their little heart. In my other life, as CB alluded to, I'm a performing artist, and I am a member of the Actors Equity Association, the Stage Actors Union.
Nice.
And it is a difficult time, right, for performers and for unions and for producers and for everybody, right?
Yeah.
and without going too much into it, because that is not what today's chat is about, but I will just say, like, there's a lot of drama from a lot of directions right now for
Mhm.
Actors Equity, for its elected representatives, for its members. And the positions that I hold within that union have me pulled in about 84 different directions. And when I tell you, I have never felt anything more than Eli being like, I'm just gonna go. And then being yanked back into the room and forced to be there for the conflict. So I totally identify with Eli's, like, can't, but we could not fight. So there's that. Invicta, I mean, who among us has not experienced some level of that, just like crushing, debilitating self-doubt, right? And whether that is all homegrown or all external or a combination of both, right? Who among us does not have some sort of idea of what that is like? And that was really, really beautifully done by Tanya this past week, and I think sort of spoke to all of us to varying degrees. So I loved that.
I want to shout Tanya out really quickly because she
Yeah.
loves to be like, I'm not an actress.
Mhm.
Lies.
Lies. Truly lies. Truly. Sila, you know, I credit, I don't know that I ever talked about this before. I credit the gaming community and the folks that I have been fortunate enough to connect with in this industry in the last few years. I credit this community a whole lot with my learning about and understanding and being sort of awoken to the complexities of mental health and emotions, and that in terms of like dealing with my own shit and understanding where other people are coming from when they're, can I swear on here? I'm so sorry.
Yes, no, you can.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
yep. We are a Be
and
Yourself channel.
Huzzah. And understanding where other people are coming from with their shit and their mental health and their emotions. And I really credit the gaming community with sort of helping me begin that journey of understanding. And so having that in Sila 919, I am literally afraid to not say her whole name. She'll yell at me. Is amazing, right? And I also, I have to say, even now, and I'm working on it, and I will always, I think, sort of be working on it, but it's really difficult for me to be wrong in front of people. I am perfectly willing to tell you that I am wrong all the time, but that moment in which I am in front of someone and am wrong is difficult for me. And I'm getting better about moving past that awful, uncomfortable moment. But it's very, you know, and I don't know, we're not going to pathologize it here, but like that's definitely a thing that I struggle with and have and will struggle with. And watching her work through that, watching Sila 919 work through that is amazing. And Ikemba sort of feels like who I would love to be. That sort of really, and obviously Ikemba has his own stuff, and we're gonna discover what some of that is soon. But if you remember, if you were there for our session 0 when DJ was describing this person to us as we were creating him, Ikemba loves who he is. Ikemba is proud to be who he is, and like, yes, please. And you know, I am not. I don't want to give the impression that I am ashamed of who I am, or that I don't, you know, that I have no positive thoughts about myself. You know, I have worked past that. But I think Ikemba is sort of a beautiful marker for those of us who are on that sort of self-esteem journey of like, wow, cool. Look at this person who loves themselves, who is proud of themselves, who still has shit, right? Like, just because we become self-actualized and love ourselves is not going to solve everything, right? But like, what a powerful place to get to. So I love that about Ikemba.
In the same vein, but not talking about characters, is there a culture within Motherlands that you find yourself being drawn to? And I'm also going to ask another question as well, because though this is a system, this is a setting where we specifically brought a Black person from history and brought them to a new place, so there's a lot of Black influence, not necessarily influence, but you know, it is, for lack of a better word, African Black based.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
as a Latinx creator, is there something that you still see yourself in within these cultures? Like, how is it for you? How is it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of culturally for me, I think we're really going to discover a lot about what these cultures are the more we get into it. You know, we have design documents that have more details about each culture than we've mentioned on air, but all of them are still very much in process and are pulling ideas from everywhere. So I don't want to speak too much about specifics in that regard quite yet, just because stuff is still in flux. But I will say, sort of on a very personal sort of personality level, I think the Manzagene and the Hyenols are very much my peoples. The Manzagene, it's funny, Silent 919 is so different in this regard to many Manzagene, but as on the whole, the Manzagene culture is very art focused. One of the things about them is that they live forever, question mark, I mean, assuming nothing terrible happens to them, right? And so they have, many of them have found that the way that they can create meaning to their lives and the thing that they strive for is beauty through art, and I just think that's super cool. And then the Hyenols are nerds. I mean, they're a culture of scholars, and I love that, right? I love Invicta because I love that she is a nerd who can hack you to pieces when she needs to, right? I think that's great. But as a whole, the Hyonal culture, having an archive be the centerpiece of every major Hyonal city is so cool to me and just speaks to me so deeply. So yeah, those are sort of my two people, I think.
Yeah, I thinking about the Manzagene, something that like stuck with me so hard when it came to Sila being so different is when she said, why do I have to have emotions and feelings when I can just rely on logic or something like that? And I'm just like, I'm typing that one down. That hurts.
Yeah.
But it's just because she's showing that she's so different from all the other, because like you said, they love beauty within art, within creation. And she's just like, but that don't make sense though.
But why? Yeah, I'm absolutely fascinated by Sila for that exact reason. You know, I kind of got a sense for that when we were in session 0 creating it, and every session since, it has really become more and more clear to me how much of an, I don't want to speak for Christina too much, but I think how much of an outsider Sila 919 is even among other Manzagene. You know, most Manzagene will take the emotional upgrade because as Tonsaya, her mentor, noted, you know, in that pain there is strength. In that pain there is appreciation for beauty on a level that without it you couldn't have. And Sila 919 sort of unwillingness to accept that or unwillingness to experience that at first is so very different and so very fascinating to me.
I love that.
Yeah, that is, I love that too. So kind of going off of that, how do you see like this world? Were you given like a concrete, like a visual direction, or
Oh, I see.
enough space to sort of do what you need to do?
Definitely enough space. You know, we had so little time, y'all, before we went live with our first episode. So there are certain sort of visual aesthetic touchstones that we have all discussed for the setting as a whole. And then there are visual and aesthetic touchstones for like each of the cultures, for pretty much all of the cities that I have mentioned so far. The city where the Torch headquarters was a little bit more up in the air when we got there, but like Halins, where we were with Invicta and her in her flashback, and oh, I'm blanking on the city now, where Silent 919 was, but those cities, yes, thank you, Nual. Those cities had some specific architecture that was mentioned, a general feel for them, and then I sort of went from there, which, let me tell you all, one of the reasons that I make such a point of saying whenever I can that like this is a work in progress and we're all still is because I do not want to be responsible for everything that comes out of my mouth in the moment being canon. My God, so stressful, y'all.
Yeah,
In
definitely
like
see
a super
that.
fun way, but like very stressful. So I have some major aesthetic points for different things, and then I just sort of riff from there. And I try my best to check in with. I sort of have a general idea for sort of which writers focus mostly on which sections of what we've written
Mm.
so far. So I try and check in with them as best I can once when I've mentioned something that they worked on and said, "Is this sort of the direction you imagined? Do we need to pull back? Do we need to do this and this and that?" But yeah, I think in terms of the visuals, it's Musalia, the planet, which is currently the only planet that we have a ton fleshed out. And when we get to Hathaway, there will be some other stuff, and that's one thing that I am going to be asking Jasmine about before we get there to help me out with is sort of populating the visuals of that world. But if we talk about Vatoa or Musalia, the main planet, we think about really a very sort of varied ecosystems, very similar to Earth in a lot of ways. There are deserts, there are grasslands, there are coastal areas. But the colors and the materials that are used in buildings and also colors that we see sort of in nature have been in a lot of cases sort of specifically called out. And I don't know that developers necessarily said, we're going to create color palettes for Halins or for Nuanual, but in their writing, they sort of have done that. And that has been a cool way for me to latch onto things, is saying, oh, well, the archive at Primat Bay in Halins is mentioned as being made of alabaster and black onyx, right? And so that is a very striking set of colors that then I can sort of riff on from there. So it's been really interesting. I know it was sort of a meandering answer to your question, but only
No,
because like the answer is sort of like yes to all.
Got you.
No, yeah, no, and it makes complete sense because, like you said, this setting, everything about it is still growing. And as you said, you don't want to be like, and we go over here, and there is a cliffside that leaves something. Excuse me, no, there's not. Like, don't say that. No, there's not.
Right.
But you have the ability to make sure people understand that though you might say it, there might be some reworks and things happen. So that it is still cool. But a question that I am interested in asking is, and it's such a simple question, and it's not to be leading at all. Okay. But it's literally, what do you think of the story so far? In the sense that how from inception, conception to now, and especially because there's been a couple of episodes of it actually being shown and seen, has the story that Jasmine created, has it deferred in any way because of how you've been playing it? Like, are you still on that straight line? Like, how has the character shaped it? Like, what do you think of the story as a whole so far?
Yeah. Actually, at this point, we are still pretty much on track with Jasmine's adventure, and I think that actually is because we are on track. We haven't gotten very far because we have been doing this other thing that I think is really great, sort of for any campaign, for any story, for any game, but in particular for us because of the way that we are sort of publicly developing and playtesting, which is that we've taken a lot of time to get to know our characters and where they come from and who they are. And so, the meeting at the Torch headquarters was in Jasmine's outline. The encounter in the Static was in Jasmine's outline. A version of the water tank thing, although not really. That one did go a bit off course. But like, there is a sentence in the outline about like one of the things that could happen maybe because of the Static is maybe one of the water tanks gets busted. But I mean, that was still in there. And what we're going to come up on next week is still sort of the next thing in her outline. I think it's really interesting. I think the players are doing a great job. And I think we all sort of have a difficult job in some ways because we are still figuring out, I mentioned earlier, I asked that question of Tanya and Bidev, what is the Motherlands good at doing? What is the story that it's good at telling? What is the central conflict of the system and of the setting? And they both gave me great answers, but I think by necessity, the answers were sort of incomplete because we're going to discover what it's good at. You know, there's the terrifying reality is that there is every chance that we could get through Jasmine's adventure, and this is absolutely no reflection on Jasmine as a writer. She's brilliant, and the stuff that she's given me is wonderful. We could get through it and discover, you know what, that was a super great story to tell. It was a lot of fun. It doesn't actually feel like it's what the Motherlands is about, right? Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, we could get done and be like, oh, Jasmine's story is actually exactly the type of story that the Motherlands is good at telling, right? Mm-hmm. Or somewhere in the middle. So it's the cast is doing a great job of being open to feeling that out, to figuring out what the setting is good at, to figuring out what these cortex mechanics are good at. And I realize as I'm saying this that I think that actually is the source of my Sunday afternoon weekly anxiety, is just that, like, I can do all the prep I want. I can be ready for the session narratively. I can be prepared with mechanics. We're still figuring out how to tell stories in the Motherlands and what that means. And that's exciting. And as a storyteller, super terrifying. So yeah, I mean, things have changed, but I'm really happy with where it's going. I'm not in a hurry to get through Jasmine's adventure. You know, Latia, the fantastic Latia Jaquise is also writing an adventure for us. And I don't, you know, if we get to it in our 12 episode season, fantastic. If we get to part of it, fantastic. You know, we don't really have any hard expectations about how much we get through. And I'm not in any hurry. I want to let the players sort of feel things out and take the time that they feel that they need to explore interpersonal stuff, because maybe that's where the meat of the Motherland system is. I don't know yet.
Interesting.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we are going to go check out some of the fan art that was submitted for this. So let's go ahead and switch over to that.
Let's see.
All right. So we got I know.
The heart.
I had to add Bertrand.
Yes.
To this amazing fan art from this scene.
I love it so much.
Bertrand just wanted a hug.
Just wanted a hug.
No.
But we shall respect the boundaries of everybody.
That's right.
Yes,
and he did.
yes, he did. So yeah, this one was by Nortara, and also the next two are, because we get to see a little bit more of this this awesome scene.
I love this little triptych of Bertrand moments.
Yeah.
I love it.
So he did at least get a handshake or possibly a finger shake.
His little snout.
Yes.
I know. Those eyes.
Yes. Yeah, Bertrand, like, immediately, like, fan favorite when he was introduced.
Which is another wild thing. I didn't know what I couldn't figure out where Bertrand was going to come from. Yeah. I understood him on paper, but I didn't. And so I said, well, okay, maybe, you know, for me, as a vocalist, sometimes inspiration is going to come from where I find their voice sitting. And so I tried a bunch of different things. That doesn't sound right. That's not right. That's not right. So I finally asked my boyfriend, I was like, what would an elephant that could talk sound like? And of course he looked at me like, I'm sorry, Hugh, what? But he got me to like watch some videos of elephants making talking, essentially, like using sounds that isn't a trumpet, right? Isn't the like the thing that we think of when we think of elephant noises. Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Not that, but the noises they make. And it's all super low and gravelly and sort of rumbly. And so I started, you know, the Bertrand voice, and it all just sort of became clear from there.
Awesome.
I love it so much.
And here's the last one with the hug from Invicta.
Oh, from Invicta.
Being enveloped. And the little cinnamon bun trunk there.
I was just gonna say I've been watching Great British Bake, his perfect little Swiss roll.
Yes. And then our next piece of artwork is from a regular, Remy Lee art. She is so quick. because a bunch of the Amazons hang out in the Discord during the show, and we're like in like live in the voice chat and in the chat in there, and she's usually like showing stuff already before the episode is even over.
I love this. I love the binary code in the
Yes, in the
background.
background.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
love it all.
Yes. Amazing art by Ribby, and I I can't wait to see what she comes
Oh
up with
my
next.
goodness.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
I'm hoping we get all of the characters in, like this portrait.
Oh, just fantastic.
All right, so that's actually all of the art that we have submitted this week. So it is now
Right.
time for a break. We will be away for about 5 to 7 minutes or so. Give everybody time to take bio break if they need to, grab some water, and we will see all of you all in just a few minutes.
Really quickly though,
Oh,
it doesn't just go for us. Y'all
yes,
sitting down
Yes.
right now
yes.
watching this. You get up, you stretch, you get
Oh,
something to snack on,
there
bio,
we go.
everything. Make
Let's
sure
put
you do
our,
it.
if I can type it in correctly, our hydrate command. Everybody go
Yes.
hydrate, please.
That's right. Yes.
All right, we'll be right back. Alrighty, and we are back. Hopefully you guys had some water or at least something to drink. Stretched your legs.
Right, something.
Yep,
I
yep.
won't judge you for what it is. But
Right, hey.
it's still
Both.
liquid, technically.
If I
That's
didn't
right.
have work tonight, it might be some different liquid.
Ooh.
Right. And as a reminder, we are talking with Eugenio Vargas, who is the my head. Yes, you're
Oh.
that. You are he is the storyteller for Into the Meadowlands, which airs every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central, which is 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern, something across the water. I will never know.
Want to say 2 a.m.?
No,
Nope,
midnight.
that's not right.
It's midnight. Yeah.
I also shouldn't guess because we don't do daylight savings at the same time, so I'm just always wrong.
And daylight savings is this weekend.
Yes. It's at least the good one though.
Yeah,
The fall, you get the extra hour instead of it taken
I
away.
show up when my calendar alerts me.
But yeah, we've been talking to Eugenio about different questions and the way about questions. We've been talking with him about different things as far as Motherlands goes and how he's been able to process it from the seat of storyteller versus like being a cast member or you're a cast member versus being a player or a developer, in that area. So these are more episode specific questions.
Sure.
And the first one, I mean, obviously, we all want to know about the scene with Silent 919. Like, it was. I mean, not to say it was like the peak of the episode, but it was such a powerful moment. How did you feel about doing that scene first and foremost? And I'll ask you another question that kind of ties into it afterwards. But
Sure.
Was there any prep with you and Christina, who plays Silent 919? Amazing. Any talk beforehand, or like how did that?
A little. I knew I wanted to do it. I knew that we needed a way to learn more about these characters. And originally, I wanted to start the play episode or the play sessions after our session 0 with some individual scenes of the different characters getting the job and being brought to Torch. And I had started planning that, and then I examined myself for a minute and I said, you know what? This is such a good idea. How do I know it's a good idea? Because I straight up subconsciously stole it from Brennan Lee Mulligan on Pirates of Leviathan. So maybe let's not. So I knew I wanted some sort of device to have some moments with these characters during the course of our adventure. So I did let Tanya and Christina both know that I wanted to do flashbacks with their characters this week. So there was a heads up on that. I sent them a brief list of like things to think about and know the answer to. And you can share those answers with me if you want or not. Totally up to each of them. So I got different amounts and different types of things from both of them. From Christina, I really did just sort of get that she was updating her emotional software, that was the event, like the moment before event that we would be dealing with, and that she was with her mentor when she was approached by Torch. And wanted to, the way that she probably was going to react to the Torch representative was that she knew that she would want to impress her mentor. That was it. And I trust Christina implicitly, and I am forever grateful that she trusts me as well. So we sort of started that scene, and that was all that the two of us had planned. I knew that the Torch representative was eventually going to come to her. I knew the questions that the Torch representative was going to ask as part of the interview, because those questions would be asked of each of the 4 characters. And we just sort of went, and it very quickly became clear to me right at the top of the scene that the interesting part of this flashback was not going to be the job interview, that it was going to be about the emotions, the upgrade, and Sila dealing with that. And so I really just let her go. You know, we started sort of with her having a much deeper conversation with that upgrade tech, than I think he was maybe prepared for. But I really let her guide it, and based on the questions that she asked, I got a sense for where Sila was at that moment, and just sort of played on that and went. And I mean, I thought it was great. You know, I thought it gave us a really clear view of who Sila was before this mission. I think it gave us a really good sense of what Sila is going to be dealing with, and how she is going to uh, grow and change as a character throughout this arc. You know, I think we're going to see a lot more instances. I don't think it's the only thing she's going to learn and grow in, but I think we're going to see a lot more of her processing and integrating and accepting emotions, or maybe not. You know, maybe the growth is that she really does find that she doesn't like it, and that's not her thing, and that's fine too. But it definitely gave us a character trajectory for her in a way that I was really, really happy about. Yeah. Yeah. It really was I mean, it was. I knew it would be good because Christina's brilliant, right? And I will role play anything with her. But it exceeded expectations. She was fantastic and gave me so much to pull on in that scene.
Within that scene, though, we don't just learn about Sila 919. We kind of get a glimpse into who her mentor is as well. Was her mentor somebody that was like in the story already? Is it something you spoke with Sila about? As much as you can tell us, like, does her mentor have her own specific goals? Because it seems like she had an interest in Sila 919 and how she was processing the emotional overload, but at the same time, it was like there was interest, but also, this is what I always do, and this is what we're going to do together, because this is what I am to you. It's like, so again, I would love to know a little bit more about the mentor, and like, if you see, like, what are some goals that she has, if you could say that.
Yeah, sure. She is not part of any developer canon. She was my own creation. I did tell both Tanya and Christina that if there are NPCs that you want to introduce, let me know. And if there are things about them that you would very much like to be true for your character, let me know that too. But there wasn't any of that for Tansaya. Just that she was Sila 919's mentor. So I wanted, because Sila is such a different type of Manzagene from the source book write-up, right? The write-up of what Manzagene culture is. I wanted to make her mentor a little bit more of that archetype of a Manzagene. So someone who has well-integrated emotions, who does appreciate art and beauty, and obviously values logic, but values the creative as well. And then I sort of started thinking about, well, if that's the case, why is that person mentoring this Sila of all people? And there are a lot of possibilities there, and I don't know that I want to say too much, because I don't know how much that's going to play into the story down the road. I do have some ideas, and I think Christina does too, about the history of their relationship, the two of them. And I have some ideas that may or may not come to fruition. But I will say it was definitely a conscious choice of hers to mentor a Manzagene who is so clearly has broken the mold, shall we say. And as far as her desires, her goals, her wants, I think whatever her reasons for choosing Sila, the reality is Sila is her mentee. Sila 919 is her mentee. And I think she, as a and this is really saying something, as an older Manzagene, I think one of the things that she has found is that teaching is its own art, is its own artistic pursuit. And I think it's really important to her that her mentees become as well-rounded and full people as they can. And so, how do I say this? I guess with Scylla, that relationship, that desire, that goal of a well-rounded, fully actualized Manzagene means really challenging Scylla a lot.
I love that. Thank you for
Awesome.
answering that, because that's just
Yeah.
it's such a cool moment. So
Yeah.
just look into it. It's cool.
Yeah.
So, in the episodes that we have seen, we've seen a few like pretty tense moments between the characters. When the players were kind of like telling you about these characters and even like the other things that you learned in session 0, did you think that there was going to be like this much like tense?
I knew there was going to be tension and
Mhm.
conflict. I had no idea how it was going to play out. I had no idea if it was going to be, a couple of oblique references to different personality styles butting heads, and then we move forward, or if it was going to be lots of like funny passive aggressive quips at each other, or if it was going to be what it has turned out to be, which is like genuine conflicts of character, and how do we resolve that, because we have to resolve that. And I am not upset about the way it has turned out, but it was as much, like I said, it was as much of a surprise how that was going to get resolved or be processed. I guess it is not resolved, how that would be processed amongst the players. But yes, I did have an inkling that there were some opposing personality types, shall we say.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real. In the session 0, we got two bio priests who were completely different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
We saw
And
that from the
we
jump.
talked about that. Absolutely. And we talked about that because both of them said, oh, should one of us choose a different profession so we can showcase more professions? And we also said, no, I don't think so. I think one of the things that this system does really well is really allows you to pick all of the same stuff and still play a completely different character.
Yeah.
And because profession is really just one thing among many distinguishing factors on a character sheet about a character. So I was excited that the two of them wanted to be bio priests and to, like you said, approach it from the very opposite ends of the earth.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. Kind of in a bit of a not to get to like the tense and emotional moments, but kind of some funniness too. Just in your personal opinion, and no, there are no favorites in this question. This is just purely hypothetical. In a potential not necessarily physical fight between Silo 919 and Invicta, who would your money be on?
Oh, God.
Only because
look. Here's the thing. I think I can say this, and I think
Oh my God, chat.
Oh my God, yeah, there it is. There it is. Oh my God. Here's the thing. I hope I'm not wrong about this, but I actually think both Tanya and Christina would agree with what I'm going to say, which is that I think Invicta would win. I don't think it would be easy for her, but I think Invicta would win because one of the, again, fascinating to me anyway, things that we've learned about Silent 919 is that the vast majority of her knowledge is purely theoretical, right? The vast majority of what she knows is from study, not from practice. And I have a feeling that probably goes for physical conflict as well. And obviously, Invicta has been training with weapons and in physical combat. I mean, that is what she does. So, I think if we're talking straight up physical confrontation, who's going to win? I hope this doesn't bite me in the ass, but I feel comfortable saying Invicta, I think.
See, that's why I also said not necessarily physical, because there's so many different avenues
sure.
of going.
And I will say that on a sort of psychological level, and this conflict that they've got of words going on, That I don't know. Because on the one hand, I think Scylla has the upper hand there because she has one thing she does have experience in, right? Is sort of this cold, calculated, detached sort of method of communication that has the potential to really hurt Invicta. On the other hand, I think the more Scylla 919 integrates her emotions and sort of accepts them and understands them, I think the harder that is going to be for her to do. Oh my God, Tanya. All right, I'm gonna laugh about this after I finish this very serious answer, which is that in a sort of psychological sense, I don't know. I think Scylla would win in the short term, but I don't know. I don't know in the long term.
I'll tell you who will win right now, and tell me if she wants to. You ready for this? I lied because he walked out of there.
That's right. That's right. Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Yeah.
So as I said in chat, we can thank Pi for that question.
They walked out yesterday.
Sorry about that. My apologies on that yesterday.
Yeah. For that question and the next one. So at the end of Invicta's job interview, they kind of got a little more, personal, a little more real. And so we're wondering, did Invicta get asked out on a date? Or was that, more of just, like, let's hang out. You're cool. We're cool. Let's go hang out.
I don't think Dami intended to ask Invicta out on a date. I don't know. I mean, I guess Tanya can tell us. I don't know if Invicta would have been open to him asking her on a date.
Yeah.
All of that, you will never know. Fantastic. All of that said, I certainly don't. I certainly don't want to nix that possibility, but I do think what I know about Invicta, and also just sort of what I know about both my role-playing style and Tanya's, I think we're gonna have to allow those two to spend more time together, talking about life, the universe, and everything before a proper proposal of a date happens. Because I think they both, I understand the spirit of this question, but sort of in a serious vein, I think they both have some baggage, and I think that there is the potential for them to be super helpful to each other with regards to that baggage. But I think that's a careful thing to navigate, and I think they're both smart enough to know that.
Yeah.
That said, wouldn't that be fun?
For sure.
So, Candy, I'm actually going to allow you to ask this question as well, because I want to make sure I understand it, and I currently don't.
Yeah. So,
no worries. Fair. I'm like,
yeah,
I got you. Not mix it up, though.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on it earlier. Like the dice rolls have been very interesting the last couple of episodes.
My goodness.
And so I just want to find out what you well, yeah, kind of what you prefer. Do you prefer where sort of where the story leads when the players are rolling more on the bad side, or or where the story goes when they're rolling more on the good side?
So cliffhanger versus resolution type of vibe?
No, more do you feel like that the options for role play are better from them rolling bad or them rolling good?
Do you know, I think the answer is both, and I'll tell you what I mean. Because Cortex has this hitch system, where you can roll ones and have bad things happen but still succeed on the roll.
Mhm.
That I think is my sweet spot for storytelling.
Yeah.
I think generally I prefer it when the players succeed on their tests, when
Mhm.
they ultimately accomplish the thing that they are setting out to do. Uh, but I really enjoy it when they succeed with at least one hitch, because that allows me to move the story forward. Because, like, you know, they fail on a check to save the water tank. Well, okay, I mean, that just sort of puts them in a really crappy situation when they arrive on Hathaway. I don't know in that moment that it's super narratively interesting,
Mhm.
but being able to say, okay, you saved the water tank, but it took something out of you. You now have this dice in stress, and it's going to be tougher for you to do X, Y, and Z over the next day or so. That's an interesting narrative device for me.
Right. Okay.
A botch is fun every now and again because it's so sort of wild and out there. So that was really, still feel bad for DJ, but like it was an interesting moment, and I think we sort of got something out of it. I will say I didn't find it as narratively interesting as it could have been that session where
Mhm.
I was rolling gangbusters the whole time. That, like, I just kept rolling really well and they couldn't match it. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so they're not doing well at their stations. Bad things are going to happen to the ship that will cause more conflict. But, like, I don't know, fail after fail after fail is not interesting to me. In the
Yeah.
same way that
Yeah.
success after success after success is not interesting to me.
Mhm.
So I love the hitch mechanic because it allows it to literally be both in the same moment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were very like happy that it sort of evened out like this last
Yeah.
episode.
Me too.
And I'll ask this as a last question.
Mhm.
Um, what is something you are very much excited about when it comes to the next episode? Because I feel like whenever I've DM things and came like different sessions, like there's always something that even if it's like a small beat or just like a character or something, what's something that you personally are interested in the viewer seeing next episode?
Yeah. So two things. One is the easy answer, which is that I am hoping to get both Eli and Akemba's flashback scenes.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for that. The other thing is somebody, I wish I could go look. Someone tweeted at me that they are challenging me to create a non-lovable GMC sometime in the near future. And as I was sort of describing Dummy and his interaction with Invicta, I was like, oh, dude, you have to make someone that isn't so nice. Uh, so there are some NPCs that I think there's a very good chance we will meet in the next session, in the next episode, and not all of them are quite so nice, quite so wholesome. So I'm excited to get to play a little bit of that as we come up, and also just to have some new GMCs introduced that the players will actually get to
I
interact
love
with as
that
part of the
GMC.
story.
That's such a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's game master character, because we don't want to take away the importance of
Yeah.
those
Mhm.
characters from the storyteller, right? And non-player character, I mean, I'm not going to say I am ever offended by someone calling it an NPC, but I can see how that is somewhat of a loaded phrase, right? It implies that the storyteller is not a player. It implies
Mm-hmm.
that this character is less important in some way, which of course they are less important than the PCs, but doesn't mean
No,
they're
no,
not
no.
integral to the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of appreciate game master character GMC. So yeah, so excited for less wholesome GMCs. Look at me, and the two remaining flashbacks, and depending on how those two flashbacks go and how the rest of the season goes, we may do more of that. We may sort of go even further back with the characters and sort of see what we can
Ooh,
discover about them. I don't know. Well, I haven't
yeah.
decided. We'll see.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but honestly, we want to thank everybody for tuning in today because we got a lot of interesting insight from the one leading the parade, and I think that's very cool and important because, as you said, the storyteller, DM, game master, whichever script you choose to use, they're just as important as the cast members that you see as well. So
Absolutely.
being able to chat with you and get a little bit of your mind picked a little bit was very nice. We want to thank you for being here. Where can people find you? What are you doing? What's up with you? What's up in your
Oh,
world?
how long you got? No, you can you can follow me on Twitter at DMJazzyHands. I post about everything I've got going there, so that's a good central location. I do have my own channel here on Twitch. I stream 3 times a week, video games 3 times a week. Currently, mostly Dragon Age 2 and Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
So that's twitch.tv/DMJazzyHands. Would love to see y'all there. Other than that, Sundays, obviously Motherland, Sunday nights on Cypher of Tears channel at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific, midnight BST. Now I have it in my brain. Every other Tuesday, I'm over on Mini Terrain Domain playing a D&D game with the Crafting Muse, and Goblin Katie and Dr. B. That's super fun. We go every other week over there. And Monday, November 9th, keep an eye on my Twitter. That's all I got. But yeah, that's like I said, Twitter's the most central place. But those are my projects at the moment.
I'm also going to shout him out really quickly. It's not really to shout me out, but it just so happened is something I'm a part of as well. If you go on YouTube and you go to Dungeons and Dragons, you can see a panel that he was in recently on what it means to be a bard. Because as he said, separate from being a tabletop person and a actor, he is a musical director and someone who is very much in the arts. So you can learn more about him there as well.
Yeah, that was such a good chat. And so was this. I thank you both so much. It was nice to just sort of get to chat about the game. Most of my between session talk about Motherlands is with developers and the cast and stuff. So it's nice to chat about it from an outside perspective. So thank you both so much.
Yes, it was our pleasure. Thank you so much. And CB, what are you up to?
Oh, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Legit, I'm like, what?
Yes.
I'm me. I am a critical bard everywhere, quite literally everywhere, including TikTok now. But yeah, I am an actor, vocalist, hot mess. If you ever listen to Critter Hug, which is a Critical Role show that is signal boosting creators, if you hear the music at the beginning and the end, you're listening to my voice. So it's very cool to do that. Other than that, on Friday, you can catch me on Rock Punch ATL at 6 p.m. Pacific as we play Tampo, which is a Sina Una D&D campaign. And Sina Una is a really cool setting that was created by a team of Filipinx creators, developers, writers, and it is a setting that is inspired by pre-colonial Filipino culture. It is amazing. The setting is, but the show is pretty fun too. So if you're going to check it out, that'd be great. On Saturdays, I'm over at Open for Adventure in the Morning. I'm playing Ashes of Asmarin, which is a really deep, dark campaign. Stats. And on Sundays before Motherland, you can be on my channel at Critical Bard, where I am part of Creature Collectors, which is a show DM'd by Lily Sparks that is very much inspired by Pokemon, Digimon, Ghostbusters, Cardcaptor Sakura. It's so adorable.
That's awesome.
It is amazing. But specifically, I want to shout out that on Saturday, today's not Saturday, this Saturday from 1 to 3 Pacific, which is 3 to 5 Central, I'm going to be in full Waluigi regalia on the front page of Twitch for Halloween.
Hey!
So check me out, because I'll be all day. So it's going to be great. But that's really all I have to shout out.
Awesome. You can find the rest of the cast of Motherlands in chat. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Dice Envy and Grandy Coffee Co. Don't forget to use promo code Dicey Amazons at the links in chat for those. Pie, slack it again. You can save 10% or more on your orders for those two companies. Don't forget to watch Into the Motherlands on Sundays. We do have daylight saving time coming up, so the BST will probably change, but 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And
I
check
like how we
that
can
out.
skip over Mountain Time.
Did I really? I sure did.
No.
Oh.
Everyone skips over Mountain Time in life.
Sure did.
Like,
Sorry, Mountain Timers. As for me, I am Candy, the executive producer of the Dicey Amazons, and we basically stream every day of the week. Tomorrow, Thursday. Tomorrow we have Dicey Science with Christy, where it's going to be Halloween themed. And so she'll be answering your Halloween themed questions about science. On Friday, we have Pi doing some gaming. And then Saturday, you're going to get a double dose of the Dicey Amazons. We're actually going to do a Halloween one shot at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And that should be a whole lot of fun. And then our partner, Vibrant Legends, will be playing as well at their usual time at 4 p.m. I believe theirs is Halloween themed as well. So we just got Halloween morning and evening. And then Sunday, we are actually going to do a little fireside chat with the Amazons. This one is actually going to be scheduled, and not because we are having technical difficulties. But you can hang out with us, ask us questions. Oh, and then Saturday, we will have a super duper big announcement for the Dicey Amazons. And so check us out, check out our socials that day, and can't wait for you all to find out what's happening next with the Dicey Amazons. We are super duper excited. So, with that, we look forward to hanging out with all of you in the Discord on Sundays for Into the Motherlands and chatting with you. And one thing to remember at Dicey Amazons, you are always welcome at our table. Y'all have a excellent night.